Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to League Chat with the Stat. I'm your host, Stat, and my oh my, what a weekend of football we just had. I'm not going to lie to you guys, I was quite on the edge of my seat this weekend. With almost every game that was played, I couldn't believe some of the results. And look, I can't wait to get into this weekend with you guys. Now, I just wanted to start off with the NRL ladder, something that I haven't done and I should have been doing from the beginning. But hey, we're all in this together, we're all learning together. So let's get cracking to the NRL ladder, which I'll pop up on the screen as I talk with you guys through it. So at the top of the ladder, you have the Parramatta Eels outright first on 14 points. Penrith 13 points in second. Good to see some Sydney teams at the top. We've got Melbourne Storm at third, Newcastle at fourth, which round out the top four. And you have Roosters, Raiders, Sharks and Tigers that finish up the top eight. It looks like a very good top eight so far, guys, I won't lie. Not much in it at all. So it's very, very exciting times here in the NRL. Now with the bottom eight, we have the Rabbitohs and the Sea Eagles all on 8 points. We've got the Cowboys and the Warriors on 6 points. We have the Dragons, the Broncos and the Titans all on 4 points. And we have the mighty Canberra Bankstown Bulldogs on 2 points. This is very embarrassing, but it is what it is. Okay, let's get straight into the round that was round 8. And oh my goodness, there we just start off with Melbourne Storm 27 defeating the Roosters 25. That easily became game of the round for me. I was not expecting that game to go the way it did, and I don't think many other people were as well. I want to just talk to you guys about the last 15 minutes of that game, which was really what got my attention. Now, obviously, we got some kids rising up at very, very interesting times, especially towards the end of that game. You had Kyle Flanagan, who 2 minutes ago had to kick that penalty goal, which he nailed, which was amazing. Then the Iceman, Luke Keary, plotting in that field goal not even 30 seconds later. But the game shouldn't have ended the way it did. It shouldn't have gone to extra time. And it shouldn't have gone for Melbourne winning that game. Roosters were up by 10 and very, very comfortably up by 10. But Daniel Tupou dropped the ball about 4 times in the last maybe 10, 15 minutes, which I believe costed Roosters the game. With it came with the short kickoffs, he dropped the ball, and which is what gave the opportunity for Pappenhausen to slot the field goal, which is his first of his career, mind I ask. And look, I can't sit here and say that it was all Tupou's fault. I mean, the Roosters were up 10 to go. And look, I honestly think that easily this is the best game I have ever seen in maybe the last 3 or 4 years, including grand finals. So this game blew my mind in every sense of the word. It was just end to end. It was full on, it was frantic. And Storm did all this without Cameron Munster, who's a focal point of their attack. And I thought it was just exceptional. We see the Morris boys again killing it, like they've been doing every week for the last 6 to 7 to 8 weeks. And it's just been fantastic to watch, seeing these old guys just continue to deliver and be at the top of their game. So I really enjoyed that. And it was interesting to see Cameron Smith at 5'8". I didn't think he went particularly amazing. I felt like the attack was a little startled at times. But look, nonetheless, they did get away with it. Unfortunately, the game ended with the Jake Friend penalty when he pushed Dale Finucane. And very tough. I did see the portion, I get it. But it was just a cracker game. Both teams were exceptional. There wasn't anything that I could say about any of the teams that were actually negative. They were both fantastic. So absolute game of the round for me. When he just kept penalty goal to field goal to field goal, I was just running frantic on the edge of my seat, and this game had me going crazy. So thank you to the Storm and to the Roosters for that exceptional game. That was just amazing. I'll move on to the Raiders 22 to the Dragons 16. Now, again, a game where I didn't expect it to be this close. George Williams, he has been fantastic for the Raiders, and he's probably one of the best English backs that we've seen come through the NRL potentially ever. Now, we've had people like Ryan Hall who's come in, but he's been a bit of a substitute. We've had Joe Burgess who's come in as well, and he's been in and out of the squad at the Rabbitohs, and he's obviously gone back to England now. But George Williams has really solidified himself as a really, really top halfback, especially what the Raiders need right now. After losing Aiden Caesar, and they've brought in George Williams, which is a bit of a gamble, and he seems to be paying really well for the Raiders. But look, the Raiders, yeah, they got lucky with that win. They missed 43 tackles. Last week, they missed 60. That's in 2 weeks, they've missed 103 tackles. And it's very full on. Now, Look, and I'm going to give credit to the Raiders. I mean, they lost three forwards in that game. They lost Osia Soliola with a facial fracture. They lost Omro Gula with the ankle syndesmosis injury, and they lost Elliot Whitehead, who had initially injured his ankle, but then got sent off for HIA because he got poked in the eye by his teammates. Now, look, it was a spirited performance from the Raiders, finishing off the game with 14 men. And look, all credit to them. They held on and they did enough to put the Dragons away. Now, look, just onto the Dragons. And Ben Hunt, look, really, really tried. I thought Matt Duffy was very good. I thought Ewan Aitken was very good. And I thought Corey Norman was just not great. I thought that was easily the worst performance of his career. I had a quick look throughout the game, just at different points of the game, to Corey Norman, and he looked so disinterested. It didn't seem like he cared. Some sloppy kicks he put in, a lot of errors. It just wasn't Corey Norman's night. Now, look, as I said, you sit here and you look at the scoreline and you say, oh, what? But Raiders were up 22-0 in the first half. They shouldn't have let Dragons come back. But when you lose three forwards, two of them, one of them's current international, one's a former international, and Omro Gula was an international in the under-18s. I mean, any team that loses three players, it gets very hard. So, look, I'm liking what they're doing with Ben Hunt at 9 and McInnes at 13. I really, really like it, and I think it will take a lot of time. But look, Corey Norman wasn't good enough. And you could see in his performance, Jason Saab and Ravalawa weren't good on the wings either, conceding tries on each wing, and wasn't very, very good from the Dragons. But look, as I said, you can't win games when you're down 22-0 in the first half, or if you have put 0 in the first half. You can't do that at the end of the day. Yeah, they put in 3 tries and they tried to narrow the gap at the end, but it wasn't enough. And Paul McGregor must be fuming, I can imagine. You've got someone like Corey Norman on $900,000 a year and putting in a performance like that, especially where they're sitting at the bottom of the ladder, and especially with the team they have, I don't believe is good enough. Moving on, Parramatta Eels 42 destroyed the Cowboys 4. Look, I got to give it to them. I'm not going to lie. I actually thought the game would be a lot closer. Coming off Cowboys' performance last week, I thought that'd actually be a closer game. But look, Clint Gutherson destroyed it. Got over 250 metres, slotted 7 from 8 in terms of his conversions. And he was just very, very, very good. He actually didn't even practice at all when he came to the conversions. He did not practice during the week. And he slotted a lot of those from the sideline. So it was fantastic to see. Mike Casivo, 4 tries. He's the first one to do it since Temi Radraja. And Marcus Sivo is just out of this world. He's just going to get better and better. And watching him just destroy that right edge for the Cowboys was a sight to behold, let me tell you. Now, I don't think there was a bad player in that team. Now, obviously, Mitch Moses was a huge loss, but Jai Field came in for his club debut and he was fantastic. Now, Dylan Brown as well, only 20 years old, he went and he killed it. Got 3 try assists, was heavily involved in the whole game, and Jai Field even scored a try for himself and a couple of line breaks as well. So, look, they were fantastic, Parramatta. And especially to have some fans back at the home ground, I reckon that just really gave them that edge to just improve and just continue to strive for that top spot on the ladder and even heading towards the finals and even potentially grand final. The Cowboys were just pathetic. 42-4. I understand you're versing the Eels, but again, you came off a very good team against Newcastle last week, beating them 36-22. And you'd think that Cowboys would bring back that energy. Look, it was only 16-4 half-time when they scored that consolation try in the 38th minute, which can I say as well, if this was a Parramatta of 2 years ago and they were up 16-4 half-time and conceding that try just before half-time, I could honestly sit here and say that I don't think Eels would have won. But Eels have grown so much and they've grown, especially defensively this year, which has really, really impressed me. And the Cowboys just had nothing. They had a chance in the first half, being up 16-4 at half-time. But the second half, they just threw it all away. And look, one player I've been watching at the Cowboys who was a decent signing for them for this year, Isan Masters. Where has he been? He hasn't been great for the club. I've never seen Isan Masters play so poorly. At the Tigers, he was great. Excuse me, he was phenomenal at the Tigers. He was doing everything well. He was goal kicking. He was energetic in attack and defense. But you looked at him at the Cowboys, and for the last couple of weeks, I'm surprised he hasn't been dropped. He hasn't been good for them. And that's something that the Cowboys really need to look into, regardless of how big the signing is. But look, that right edge wasn't great. the Cowboys as a whole weren't great. Jason Taumalola unfortunately can't do everything himself. Guy gets over 200 to 250 meters a game, sometimes even more, but he can't really carry the team on his own. So, but look, credit to the Eels. They came out and they destroyed the Cowboys and just ran through them, and it was like a training run for them. So, mate, full credit to them. And I can obviously tell here that it didn't really affect their for and against. I mean, the point differential of 108, it's very, very good. So, but look, moving on to the Sharks 40 defeating the Titans 10. And look, I watched that game very closely, thinking it was going to be a close game. But Titans of old. They get it right 1 week, they get it wrong 4 weeks. They get it right 1 week, they get it wrong 4 weeks. Not good enough. Shaun Johnson, who has been a main focal point in their attack, who's finally starting to kick into gear. He had been criticised about 3 or 4 weeks ago when the Sharks were losing, being the $1 million man. But Sharks have won 3 on the trot. And I thought their forwards were very impressive. Andrew Fifita and Brendan Hamlin-Uele really setting the platform for the Sharks to just romp on the Titans. The Titans, I understand they're very inexperienced, but they had too many errors in the game. The error count came 17 to 10 in the way of the Titans. A very high-field error game. And look, they had a consolation try through Corey Thompson when Shaun Johnson threw that ball, but it went to no one, and Corey Thompson ran 95 metres and scored the try. I mean, it wasn't good enough. And the Titans, unfortunately, during the week, they lost Philip Sammy and Kevin Proctor, and to the shoulder injury, and to, I believe it was a hamstring as well for Kevin Proctor. But still not good enough. I understand they're losing experience, but they had a few kids on debut. I thought Bo Firma was very good on debut. I thought he was very, very solid for the Titans. And look, you get little nice and feel-good stories like that, but the Titans aren't good enough, and Sharks just went absolute riot. And that would have given a lot of confidence for Shaun Johnson to deliver. Being 3 on the trot as well, I reckon it would have just helped him out even more to take his game to the next level for the Sharks. Now, I don't know why this really makes me happy, but the Warriors 2016 defeating the Broncos 16. And just a few days after being told that he was not needed at the club, Blake Green came out and, man, he killed it for the Warriors. He was fantastic. 5 minutes into the game, they lost Cody Nikorima to concussion. And I thought, okay, well, surely Broncos will win now. Surely that all this will end, all the rubbish talk about Seabold will end. But, mate, they were fantastic. They played with a lot of heart, and they were just so good all across the park. Ken Momalo was fantastic. As I said, Blake Green. And Tohu Harris was great. And Carl Lawton, who moved from the hook position to lock. I thought he was good until he got off with HIA. So, look, even Adam Blair led from the front as well. I thought Warriors really put in a great performance. Now, and we've got to remember, they had no Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, who's their captain. And I thought Peter Hiku did okay at filling up at fullback. I thought he did all right. But, look, you look at the Broncos and I can't believe it. 6 down. They've lost 6 on the trot, and nothing's working for them. Now, no matter what they try, no matter what they do, nothing seems to be going well for them. The only good players for them this week were Payne Haas and Xavier Coates. Xavier Coates clocking like 300 metres because he scored 2 tries and made a few line breaks, and Payne Haas always leading from the front. But their halves, it's not good enough. Anthony Milford's on $1 million, and they bought Brodie Croft to come in to help Milford, and nothing's happening. Look, there are a lot of dramas there, and look, I see them crying at the end of the game. You know, and I'll admit, like seeing Alex Glenn, their captain, sobbing on the shoulders of Adam Blair, like it really, really upsets me. I'll be honest. I've got so much respect for Alex Glenn, but the club as a whole is just an absolute shambles right now, and it's just not good enough to be where they are. Easily the richest club in the NRL, and they're sitting 15th. And they take on the Bulldogs this week, which I reckon will win. But look, we'll get to that in a sec. But Anthony Seibold is a very stubborn man. He's not looking to make any changes to the side. He tried to drop Corey Oates, but Matt Lodge was injured, so he brought him back in for his 150th game. Corey Oates wasn't happy that he was got dropped as well. So, look, I honestly think that the Broncos really need to sit down and evaluate themselves. They should have done this 3 or 4 weeks ago, but I just don't understand. You know, the first 2 weeks they were undefeated and they were riding high. And obviously in that second game, Brodie Croft did his shoulder. when he had done his shoulder, done the AC joint, he was only missing 2 weeks. But obviously COVID-19 shut down the NRL, but that would have given him time to train and to get back to where they needed to be. But it's just been embarrassing. Paul White is under a lot of pressure as well. He is not looking great at the club, as well. And look, people have been telling me that he's got his eyes on taking the NRL gig, which I don't think he'll get, especially with the way Broncos are going at the moment. And his continual backing of Anthony Seibold needs to stop. 6 on the trot. Look, I reckon these next 2 weeks will be very pivotal for the Broncos, and especially making some changes. Putting Dearden in the half. Stop putting him as a hooker, a backup hooker to Isaac Luke. I get it. You've got your hookers that are injured at the moment, Jake Turpin and Corey Pay, but I mean, surely you bring Dearden into the halves to apply pressure on the halves, not to put him as a backup hooker. It just doesn't make sense to me. And look, credit to the Warriors. I really want to see the Warriors build off this. I don't want them to get smashed again next week or the week after and go back to square one. Kind of a 1 step forward, 2 steps back with them. But look, one can only hope. And Blake Green is playing really well. I'm surprised that the Warriors don't want to keep him. I do get it. He's 33, 34 years old, but he's still playing too well. So just a matter of time to see what happens. Now, the Penrith Panthers, 19 defeating the Tigers, 12 at Bankwest Stadium. And that was a very, very good game. A lot of emotions went through that game. I thought Jerome Luai was fantastic. Really starting to find himself in that number 6 jumper. And especially playing off Cleary. And it's the perfect foil. And I really love what Penrith are doing at the moment. They're defensively, they're fantastic. In attack, they're just so structured, so good. Coruscant is making such a difference for that club. Now, he went there in the last minute bid when he was signing with the Bulldogs, and then Ivan Cleary snapped him up last second, but he's paying dividends for him. He's really changed their attack, and he's been the sole reason why Penrith have been doing so well. Another monster game from the forward, James Fisher-Harris. Fantastic. Leading from the front again, playing 80 minutes. He's really starting to find himself as a top 5 front rower in the game right now, and it's fantastic to see from him. One thing I found interesting in that game was Viliami Kikau was very good. He only made 4 runs. Penrith used him as a decoy the whole night to kind of fool the Tigers' defence, and he really did well. Now, I thought the Tigers they were okay. I don't think they played terrible. They had a few 50-50 calls go against them. And look, the only thing that really angered me from that game was Joey Leilua. I get it. I saw his brother go down in an accidental shot from Coruscant as he was falling to the tackle and got clipped on the chin. But then to go out towards the end of the game and clothesline Dylan Edwards, who had absolutely nothing to do with the play, is just idiotic. Yeah, he's suspended for 4 weeks, and so he should be. But I'm sorry, you need to control that emotion, Joey. You need to control that anger. You need to control all of that, especially in the team when you got your coach as Michael Maguire. The guy runs a very tight ship over there, and for you to be pulling something like that, it was just a joke, especially on Dylan Edwards, who had nothing to do with the play at the time anyway. So, look, Joey Leilua is a very experienced player, and he came out at the beginning of the year saying he was the best centre in the game, no doubt. He hasn't really proved it, to be honest. Josh Morris has come out and absolutely eclipsed him, and he's got 4 or 5 years on him. So, look, I reckon in the month that Joey Leilua has to kind of regather his thoughts and rethink about all his decisions that he's made, I reckon in time you'll find him to be a better player. And I really hope so, but just a stupid brain snap they didn't need. Now, look, as I said, it was a very highly emotional filled game. And obviously at the end, with the Tigers fan going up to Ivan Cleary and making him really upset and trying to annoy him about the fact the way he left the Tigers, but Ivan Cleary doesn't care. Blew a few kisses into the fans and gave a thumbs up to his son. Look, people are blowing up saying that's not good enough, and Trent Robinson wouldn't do it, and Wayne Bennett wouldn't do it. But I'm sorry, the guy's human at the end of the day. He's just trying to have a laugh, and you can't expect someone to be sitting there swearing at you and not to retaliate in any way possible. In fact, I thought he retaliated the best way. But look, as I said, not that big of a deal. I thought it was great. I thought it was fun. I really enjoyed watching that, and I loved it. I thought it was really good. Now, the Knights 14 defeating the Sea Eagles 12 at Brookvale Oval, and that's a very, very, very good game from the Knights, especially losing to Cowboys the week before. I thought they were fantastic. Now, in the first run, Edric Lee broke his arm, so they were already down to 16 men for almost the whole 80 minutes. But they were fantastic. Now, look, another quiet night for Kalen Ponga. Now, I know Adam O'Brien was mentioning before the Cowboys game that he was looking to move Ponga away from his favourite left side attack when he's attacking and move him to the right side, but it doesn't seem to be paying dividends. And Kalen Ponga at the moment has been quiet, very unlike him, and he even gave away a penalty and made 3 errors as well. I think he's just trying to find the balance on both sides of the field and getting it right. The left side attack is his focal point, and he'll go there as long as he needs to. But Adam O'Brien's getting him to be a little uncomfortable and pushing him down to the right-hand side of the field. Now, look, this match was so close in every statistic possible, but there was a controversial ending. When Tavita Funa put that kicking down the sideline in the last second attempt for the Seagulls to win, and then Bradman Best absolutely shoving him way after the kick was put through. Going to the bunker, and the bunker said, yeah, it was fine, no penalty should be given. And I sat there and thought, that's a joke. Adam Fanua-Blake running up to the ref and calling him a effing retard. Like, I get how angry you could be and all that, and he only copped 2 weeks for it, which I was very surprised, considering that David Clemmer and James Graham, especially James Graham, and the Easter Monday clash against the Rabbitohs where they lost it at the ref and the Dogs lost that game, and James Graham didn't even swear at him, just pointed at the ref and kind of spoke to him in a kind of derogatory manner, but copped 4 weeks for it. Fanua-Blake's called the ref a retard, and he's copped 2 weeks. And look, it wasn't a great look for the game, but I can understand. I mean, the call wasn't a good call. Graham Anderson said, in my opinion, if it was up to me, I would have given it a penalty, but it was clear as day. It was a penalty every day of the week. If that happened in the first minute, in the 30th minute, in the 80th minute, it's still a penalty. And look, not that I thought Seagulls would have won the game anyway. They would have had to kick it from the sideline, and Garrick hasn't really been up to scratch with his kicking this year anyway. But still, like, it's about the principle, and I really thought that the Seagulls could have played better. Obviously, he left it to the last second, and obviously the emotions are running high as well. But at the end of the day, it wasn't good enough. And the Seagulls really need to look hard at themselves and see how to get in a consistent 80-minute performance, because they are a decent team, but they're just not getting it right at the moment. And they are missing Tom Trbojevic and Dylan Walker, but this has got some thinking to do and got some changes that need to be made. So, look, with the last game of the round, the Rabbitohs 26 defeating the Bulldogs 10. And I watched the game just as much as I could as a rugby league fan. Now, the Rabbitohs weren't great. I know what you were thinking, you're a biased Bulldogs fan, but let me get to it. For the backline that the Rabbitohs have and the forward pack they have, they didn't play great against us. They weren't great, but then again, Bulldogs were way worse. Like I mentioned in last week's podcast, that backline that we named was despicable. I'm not happy with it in the slightest. And it was just a joke. I mean, Marcelo Montoya, I get it. He's been out for a year, but I don't rate him as a player. Kieran Holland, I don't rate him as a good centre either. We have kids like Morgan Harper, who isn't given a crack just because he signed a 2-year contract with the Eagles from next year. We need to change it up a little bit. We can't sit here keep putting the same 17 on the field and expecting results. Now, Adam Elliott has been a very decent player for us this year, and he's now gone down with a shoulder injury and needs reconstruction. He's looking at the season. And he's off contract this year as well, and he could potentially be leaving. And he's played with a lot of heart, Adam Elliott, this season. He's been very, very good for us, as hard for me as it is to admit. But I just question Dean Pay's selections. Now, I get it. He was handed a team and he couldn't do much about it. But you've signed Sione Katoa from Penrith as a backup hooker to Jeremy Marshall-King. Look, I don't really rate Sione Katoa. I don't think he's that amazing of a player. But I'm sure he's a better player than Holland at hooker. Why we're playing Kieran Holland at hooker is beyond me. Seeing Marshall-King come off within like 10-15 to go and seeing Kieran Holland running around playing hooker, what's that about? We've signed a hooker. We've signed a backup hooker. All right, who isn't great, but at least he can play his preferred position better than Holland can. It's a waste of spot on the bench. It's a stupid call. And I want to back Dean Pay and I want to say, no, give him a couple more years, give him the team he wants, and then sack him if he's not doing well enough. But you look at little decisions like that, putting Kieran Holland on the bench is not going to be good for any team, especially for Bulldogs. I don't know what he's thinking there, giving him 10-15 minutes a game. I think it's a waste. I think you should be putting Sione Katoa in there at least. But who knows? And with all the dramas happening with the board at the moment, and with all the dramas happening surrounding the coach and his future, the board have come out and said, yeah, he'll be there to the end of the year, but they're not guaranteeing next year. And week in, week out, I come on here and I say, as a fan, we need to know. As a fan, I must know where we're going as a club. Why do you think we didn't sign John Bateman? Yeah, I get it. The attraction to go home to be with his kid is obviously the main reason he left, but we could have kept him in the NRL. He could have been very, very good for the Bulldogs. But with there's so much uncertainty at the moment, why would he? But look, as I said, Rabbitohs 26, Bulldogs 10. The Rabbitohs really need to start thinking about how they need to get better. And Wayne Bennett is a genius of a coach, so I know he'll do a few things there. I do feel for Braden Burns. He's out for the year, injuring his knee, and it didn't really look that great, his knee, and unfortunate for him. And he's such a resilient player, and when he's on. He's very, very good. So look, all the best, mate, to the injury and into the recovery as well. But for the Bulldogs, yeah, there are a lot of issues there with selections, but I'm really hoping that there's some light at the end of the tunnel for us. But then again, who knows? Look, we move on to the next segment, the news around the NRL world, though, from the last week. So now, speaking of the Bulldogs, we are looking to re-sign Kieran Foran on a reduced base contract, not keeping him for $1 million a season that he's on now. And we've tabled a massive offer to Nick Kotrick of $750,000 a season for 3 years for him to play centre. Again, if our board is a shambles and we have no direction at the moment and we have nothing in terms of stability within the coach, why would any player come to the Bulldogs? And we've also been linked to Jackson Hastings from Wigan, who's being chased by us and the New Zealand Warriors. And look, I'm not understanding why we're looking to chase every player in the NRL market, but everything is a mess within our club. And I don't blame any of these players that we get linked to and coaches that we get linked to rebuild the club, because we need to sort out what's happening in the board. We need to sort out what's happening with our coach. We need to start stringing some decent performances on the field so that we can attract players to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I want to play for the Bulldogs. I want to be part of that family club. Well, what can you do at this point? We just need to see what happens and see if Lynn Anderson will still be there at the board. But there is talk that she'll be made to stand down. But look, as I said, we'll keep you in the loop and we'll see what happens. But until then, as I said, we're not looking to sign any players until we sort out what's going on off the field as well as on it. Now, Leihava Pulu is the first player to return to New Zealand. His wife, current pregnant wife, was involved in a minor car accident. All is well, she's in good health, the baby's fine, but he pulled out his opportunity to leave the Central Coast, where the Warriors are based, and just to head home to be with his partner and family. Then look, you can't blame him. You can't blame any of these players if they all decided to pick up and go home. You can't blame them. And Leihava Pulu, mate, all the best with your wife, and I do respect you for making that decision. So, but as I said, look, we'll just have to see what happens and see how the Warriors back up from it. But they did get Jack Hetherington to come in as a lone player as well, which helped a little bit. But as I said, Leihava Pulu returning back to New Zealand as something that's happened during the week. Now, Corey Harawira-Naera, he has caught the attention of a few NRL clubs. Now, the NRL has pushed back their June 30 deadline to August 3rd. And Corey Harawira-Naera is a name that keeps being mentioned to the NRL clubs. Now, we sacked him due to his off-field indiscretion with Jaden Ockenball. And although Harawira-Naera's incident wasn't as bad as Ockenball's, we still sacked him as a club. We made a decision to sack him. And if we had him this year, I reckon we would have won at least 1 or 2 more games. But look, there are clubs that are looking to sign him. I know that the Dragons are interested. I know that the Sea Eagles are interested as well, with Joel Thompson heading to the Super League. So there are a lot of clubs out there, and even the Raiders at the moment, who are absolutely depleted with injuries at the moment, who are looking to beef up their front row. So look, he'd be a handy acquisition to any club. He was our best signing 2 years ago, and as a Bulldogs fan, we're spewing we let him go, but it is what it is, and he's in the market, and up to 6-7 NRL clubs want him. So it's a matter of just seeing whether V'landys and Andrew Abdo will actually let him into the NRL and give him the green light and re-register his contract and get him playing again. So, but look, on the Warriors, Jack Murchie, who signed as a mid-season rookie from Canberra Raiders, has re-signed to the end of 2022 in a boost to the Warriors in their back row box as well. He hasn't been the worst since he's joined the Warriors, and he's actually helped them out so much, and even got a starting gig a few weeks ago. So it's good to see that someone's committing to the Warriors at this point in time, with so many players sacking and so many changes happening at the club at the moment. Now, this is something that really interested me. An NFL executive reached out to Peter V'landers on how to restart the NFL in September. That's huge. And Peter V'landers was honoured when he got the phone call and was looking at ways to help them out, to get them back on the park, and giving him tips and ideas as to what he did to get the NRL back on the park. So I thought that was the highlight from the news this week. I thought that was something that really caught my eye, and it's something I actually enjoyed hearing about. As big as the NFL is, and getting advice from the Australian sports such as NRL, it gives us massive raps as a code. So it's fantastic to hear. Now, on Sunday morning, Paul White came out and backed Anthony Seibold, even though they've lost 6 straight, and said they're not going to sack him. Now, last night on 100% footy, he came out and said that there are performance clauses in every coach's contract, including Seibold's, even though Seibold came out and said he didn't have anything like that in his contract. So a lot of things are happening there at Brisbane. Paul White's under pressure, Seibold's under pressure, the players are under pressure, but nothing seems to be going well for him. And I thought Paul White backing Seibold again was just... Look, I get it, but they're not looking good, Broncos, and they need some changes, and they've jumped the gun signing him to a 5-year deal with the option for a 6th year. So, look, as I said, it's an interesting time at the Broncos. But look, expect Paul White to be stood down or let go within the next 4 to 6 weeks minimum. Wouldn't surprise me if it happened earlier. Now, Adam Fanua-Blake, after calling the ref a retard, cops 2 weeks suspension. There was also talk that he called the refs a spastic as well when they were in the change rooms, and he's now looking at a 5-figure fine, looking at a 10 grand, 15, maybe 20 grand fine. Not a great look for him, and not a good look for the game. But as I said, emotions ran high, and that slipped out of him. So, and look, speaking of Adam Elliott earlier, the Bulldogs tabled him a contract extension, and he felt that he had been lowballed by that. And you've got the Raiders, Tigers, and the Dragons who are interested in his services. Now, like Adam Elliott, who is currently at the club, doesn't want to re-sign with the Bulldogs until everything sorts itself out with who the coach is going to be and what's happening with the board. And this is a current player in our squad, and he still doesn't look at wanting to be there. So it's interesting times for the Bulldogs at the moment, but look, as I said, who knows? And for the final wrap-up, Craig Bellamy has come out and said that after next year, coaching, he looks to be done. He said it before. He doesn't have the same desire to keep coaching. He would be a massive loss for us as the NRL and for the Melbourne Storm. So that's all the news for the week. And we are looking over to round 9. Now, we've got the Cowboys coming up against the Sydney Roosters. A few changes have been made to each of these squads. So Hamilton Tabuai-Fidow comes back to the side at fullback. Valentine Holmes replaced him last week at fullback. With Valentine Holmes moving to the wing, and they're calling Connolly Lumelu back into the centres. O'Neill is actually injured, Justin O'Neill, and Tom Opicic has been dropped. And Tom Gilbert is coming to the side for Ruben Cotter. While for the Roosters, Daniel Tupou out with an ankle syndesmosis injury for at least the next 8 to 10 weeks, and is replaced by Ryan Hall, the English import. Boyd Connor is being rested due to concussion that he suffered last week towards the end of that game. It was Mitch Orbison starting for him in the side, and Lachlan Lamb will come onto the bench as a utility in jersey 14. Now, this game, I see the Roosters just blowing them out of the park. I do think Cowboys will play a little bit better than they did against Para, but I don't see them competing against the Roosters. So it'll be Roosters 13 plus for me. Now, we've got the Titans coming up against the Warriors, which should be a very interesting game. Now, Corey Thompson has been moved from the wing spot to fullback, with Tremaine Spry to make his debut for the club on the wing, with Tyron Roberts being dropped. He was a late inclusion at fullback, Tyron Roberts, and he obviously didn't play too well, so he's been dropped from the game. Now, Sam Stone will move to the second row, pushing Bo Firma, the debutant from last week, back into the centres, and Tyrone Peachy to the bench. And Aaron Clark will come in and replace Mitch Rain, who has a knee injury, with Nathan Peets on an extended bench. Now, for the Warriors, they do get a boost with Roger Tuivasa back at fullback. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck coming back into fullback, moving Peter Hickey into the centres and having Gerard Bill drop out of the squad. Chanel Harris-Tavita will move to 5'8" with Cody Nikorima out due to concussion. And Jazz Defaga will play his first game of the year, which is a big boost for the Warriors. And Carl Lawton will be named lock for this game, with Tohu Harris moving to the second row. I don't know who to pick from this game. I want to say the Warriors to build off that game against Brisbane. But the Titans are a surprise packet, regardless of who's in and who's out, and the changes they make sometimes they pull off. So, but look, for me, I reckon we'll go Warriors 1-12. Now, for the Friday night's game, the Rabbitohs will be taking on the Tigers, and for the Rabbitohs, Braden Burns is out with that knee injury. He's out for the year, so which will move James Robertson to the starting side, and Bailey Sunan, who was a late withdrawal from the game last week. My apologies. Will move back onto the bench. And for the Tigers, Michael Cheekham moves into the centres to replace Joey Leilua, who's suspended for 4 weeks, with Chris Lawrence joining the bench. This game can go absolutely in any way possible. I reckon this will be a very good game. I'm going to pull a weird one here and say Tigers by 4. I reckon they've got what it takes, and they'll have a bit more experience on the bench to help them get through. And it'll be a tight contest, but I do see Tigers by 4 as my shock pick of the week. Now the Sharks, this will be a good game. The Sharks coming up against the Penrith on Saturday afternoon. Matty Moreland, unfortunately, has done his hamstring again, so he'll be out for the next 4 to 6 weeks, which means Josh Dugan will go to fullback, they'll push Bryce Goodwin into the centres, and Ronald Mutilado will come back onto the wing in that Shark side. For the Panthers, Brian To'o is out again with an ankle syndesmosis injury, which is starting to become a common injury amongst NRL players at the moment. This will bring Dean Farrow back into the centres, and Brett Naden will come onto the wing with Malachi Watene-Lesniak on an extended bench. Look, both teams have been in very decent form as of recent, but look, I can't go past the Panthers. It'll be a Penrith between 1-12 for this game, so very interesting to see what happens. Now, the Broncos will be taking on the Bulldogs this Saturday, 5:30 in Suncorp Stadium. Now, for the Broncos, very, very stubborn coach in Anthony Seibold, keeping the halves, even though they were rumoured to be dropped for this week, keeping him in the squad. So, Tavita Pango Jr. will move to prop, pushing Thomas Flegler to the bench, and Corey Oates will move into the second row in jersey 12, with Katoni Staggs named on an extended bench, which could force Darius Boyd out of the squad. And for the Bulldogs, Adam Elliott, as I said, is out, has done his shoulder. Luke Thompson will come make his club debut in jersey 13 in the only change for the Dogs. I come in and say every week that Bulldogs will win, but I genuinely believe that Dogs can beat the Broncos this week and then just apply more pressure to Seibold. And look, it's always nice if you can get the win over Broncos and then potentially putting them at the bottom of the ladder as well. So, look, I'll go Dogs by 6. I reckon Dogs have what it takes to beat the Broncos, but unless the Broncos get a good kick up the butt, I don't see them winning this game at all. Now, the Raiders will take on the Melbourne Storm, and every time these guys come and play together, mate, it is always a cracker game. Now, the changes that have been made for the Raiders, Isia Soliola and Omre Gula are out, potentially for the season. Omre Gula with that ankle injury and Sia Soliola with that facial fracture. Now, Dunamis Louis will move into the starting side, and Kai O'Donnell will make his club debut, rated number 365 off the bench. Now, Joseph Tapine will start at lock, with Ryan Sarter moving back to the bench, and Jordan Rapana coming into the side to replace Curtis Scott, who's named on an extended bench and dropped for this week. For the Storm, Marion Seve will replace Suliasi Vunivalu on the wing, who has injured his hamstring. In a late change from what was last week, Riley Jacks will start at 5'8", with pushing Cameron Smith back to hooker, and then putting Brendan Smith back into jersey 13. Look, the Raiders are down on troops, and they are trying to seek some loan players and trying to sign some players, potentially just to the end of the season to get them through this injury-riddled time. But I see the Storm taking this game out 13+. Just how good they were last week, and having Cameron Munson on an extended bench as well will only just give me more reason to tip the Storm in this game. And I don't expect it to be a close one either. I reckon it might be a bit of a blowout. But if the Raiders can put in a decent performance without that experience in the side, it should make for an interesting game. But look, I've got Storm by 14 in this game. Now, this game should be a good one as well. The Newcastle Knights taking on the Parramatta Eels over in Newcastle. And Edgley is out with a broken arm. Will be out for the next 10 to 14 weeks. Moving Tex Hoy into the starting side onto his unfamiliar position in the wing. Now, Aiden Guerra will come in and replace Shoni Mataudia, who is out with concussion. And Stafford Toa and Brodie Jones will move into the bench for the Newcastle Knights. While for the Eels, Nathan Brown is back from suspension this week. He'll take the starting position of lock, moving Brodie Nikore to the bench. Nikore to the bench. And Raystone, Oracle, and Kufusi are both out. Both broke their hands on the weekend. And Stefano Utoi Kamanu will debut off the bench for the Parramatta Eels this week. So, an exciting debut in Stefano Utoi Kamanu. I've heard a lot of raps about him, so he should be a very good addition for the Parramatta forwards. And look, just the way Eels played last week and the Knights just scraping through, I do expect Ponga to be at his absolute best this week, and I do expect him to go more to that left side and cause a lot of issues for the Eels. But look, in this game, I am going Eels by 8. It'll be a closer game this week. I've got Eels by 8. So, and the last game to cap off the end of the round, the Dragons will host the Sea Eagles. Tariq Sims is back from a wrist injury, which is giving Dragons a muchly needed boost. They will push Tyrell Fuimaono to the bench, and Corbin Sims dropped onto the extended bench. Ben Hunt will officially start at hooker this week, pushing McInnes into the jersey 13, and Trent Moran moving to the bench. And Jordan Pereira will replace Jason Saab on the wing there as well. And for the Sea Eagles, with Sean Kepi will be starting in for Adam Fanua-Blake, who has been suspended for the next 2 weeks, and potentially even longer pending what they do with his swearing at the ref. Look, I don't know who could win this game. The Dragons have more of a chance, to be honest, than Sea Eagles do, but for some reason I just can't count out the Sea Eagles, and I would say Sea Eagles by 4 in this game. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me for this week's podcast. Now, I was meant to have a special guest. He couldn't make it this week, but he will be back next week. But look, guys, just so you guys are aware, and I've mentioned it last week, but I'll continue to mention it every week, that we're now on Facebook. So you can find us on Facebook at League Chat with the Stat, putting up all your NRL content through that Facebook page. We're also on YouTube as well. So every week we'll have a podcast up for you guys on YouTube. I'm still looking at exploring ways to get onto different apps for audio, so such as Google Podcasts, Spotify, even ways like that I'm trying to get onto as well. So look, in time things will start moving forward, but at the moment we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. Like, comment, share, subscribe. If you have any questions, send us an email, leaguechatwiththestat@gmail.com. And as I said, if you're looking to come on the show, we'd be more than happy to have you on. Anyway, guys, thank you for joining me. Thanks for joining me to discuss round 8, and we'll see you next week when we discuss round 9. Have a good night.